I got a lot out of her. She settled me down a couple times, so good on her. Good job for her. Also want to throw a little bit for the higher landing staff. They've been very professional and have done a great job of putting this all together. So I want to acknowledge that they're doing their part very well. So my name is Rick Mazurkewich. I'm a native Albertan, and I grew up on a farm north of Grand Prairie. So of course, on a farm, work ethic is important. When I was a youngster, I was very athletic, and I played a lot of baseball and hockey. From this, I played in a lot of provincial championships and even a national championship. To this day, my 4 daughters, I'm blessed that they're athletic as well, because we've been across the country playing ringette, and I even took a team to Finland several years ago. So it was so busy, in fact, that I had to buy my own skate sharpener. Now, I think I deserve extra credit here because with the daughters and with their sports, I made it through, and I'm glad to be able to speak about it. I went to the University of Alberta and earned a degree in engineering. So at that time when I graduated, the NEP was in effect. So the jobs were very scarce. So what I ended up doing is working about 3 years as an oil field operator. What I got out of that was I worked on the ground floor with a lot of the laborers, understood the attitudes at the field level, and it bode me well for the rest of my career. My first engineering job was working as a process facilities engineer. So this was out of the Brooks field office, and this job had never been posted before. So all the rules that govern it, I made up by myself because there was nothing to follow. So this is the basis for project management. And we did some great work with the operators. I applied the technical skills and their operational experiences, got some good projects done. They were very rewarding. I spent a couple years working at CNRL after that, and that's when they were a small company. They only had about 125 people in Calgary. So it was a tight community, office and community. They challenged us. They made us work hard, but they gave us a lot of rope to play with. And this is something I thrived in. It made me get out of bed and go to work. It was really fun to work. Even though many people in the industry consider it a sweatshop, it was a great place to be. Then I went to a small company, and then we eventually became a royalty trust. We were very busy drilling wells, making acquisitions, and I was the vice president of operations. So the company decided to list on the New York Stock Exchange. So as an executive, I was on the balcony ringing that bell for the first trade as a company. And I thought, wow, small town Albertan, boy, all I could think was, hey, mom and dad, look at me now. So it was the pinnacle of my career. It really was. And I don't think anything could have topped it. So even though the oil and gas industry has been very good to me, I went through a lot of ups and downs. I'm looking to pivot from it. I don't see a rebound very soon, and it's not going to be an industry that I was used to or participated in. So I'm looking to rely on my network of friends and support and guidance from the Grizzlies to get me to that next phase. So as an engineer, I can apply my skill set to any industry. I have the ability to envision requirements of a situation and be able to execute on that. So it's really articulating effectively with customer and client to figure out what the needs are, and then to mitigate errors, mitigate risks, and mitigate cost. So this is what I think I can do, and I've used this philosophy for my entire career, and I even apply it to my home life, my personal life. As an example, many years ago, I added a second story to our bungalow, gutted the kitchen, made a complete job of that. So what I did is I envisioned what size the rooms were, how to lay out the stairs to the second floor, so on, made sketches, gave it to the architect for him to draw up engineering drawings. So once the contract was awarded, I gave the contractor a list, and it spelled out window sizes, window types, plumbing types, kitchen items, et cetera, and I said, here, this is what I want. So I did this with a lot of research, and I'm sure people looked at me when I went to the plumbing store. I had a cookie sheet in my hand, and because I do all the dishes, I wanted a sink that you could lay down the cookie sheet and you could wash it instead of holding it on an angle and doing so. Another thing with the house is that we had bedrooms on the ground floor, and then the windows were situated 5 feet off of grade. I said, well, let's make it 6 feet. It's a safety aspect because a burglar has more trouble getting into a window if it's higher. So we did some other things with the house, and what the end result was that the project was on budget and on schedule, and we had a good product after the fact. So I see a lot of projects in our community that there's a gap between what the customer wants and what the delivery is. So these gaps are a matter of figuring out the details and laying it out so you alleviate these problems. So that's what I can do. I can bridge over these gaps to make a project better, work more effectively, and it's more efficient. So this is a potential client or customer. We get back to the skate sharpener. My brand of skate sharpener is called Blade Master. What the Blade Master does, it takes a dull skate that's not productive, sharpens it up, and you're ready for higher performance. So every player has their own set of requirements for having sharp skates, but it takes detail, you have to be articulate with it. That's my North Star. I'm the Blade Master.
Thank you. So clearly you're in a pivoting out of oil and gas.
Yeah.
Have you been able to articulate types of industries or specific employers that you might be looking for? It sounds like you want to do something that's in a project management type role, but have you got more specific at all on that?
I haven't. I thought about that a lot. You can either be on the client side or the customer side. So on the customer side, you could represent people that don't have a skill set for understanding what they need or want. And it could be projects like building garages or other facilities, things like that. Architectural firms could also employ somebody to bridge that gap with that potential customer so that they get what they want. But I haven't gone as far as to dive into approaching some of these industries. To this point, I've still been working on my pitch and values and so on and so forth.
Okay. Thank you.
Rick, I'm curious, what do you think what's most important, or what have you found most successful in terms of really understanding like what the customer or the client, depending on the situation, what they need and want? How have you, what's most effective?
Well, it is really sitting down and discussing, and it's like question and answer. And I go back to my rural roots because, you know, there are hospitals, arenas, and things like that that the rural community folks don't really know and understand. Mm-hmm. And they see something, they see a photo, and they say, great, that's what I want. But do they really know what's involved? Do you have enough dressing rooms? Do you have enough parking? Do you know this? Those questions aren't asked. So as an engineer, and I've built a lot of facilities, you start to think about what makes things easier for people. What do they want? If you don't ask, then that's where the gap starts. So it's sitting with individuals or groups and really laying out, what do you really want? And you start to prong them with questions.
Okay, thank you.
So Rick, thanks for sharing, you know, your story. Pretty interesting. I like the fact that, you know, you have a sink where you can wash, cookie sheets without tilting it. Yeah, I totally understand that. And, it was good to hear about the high point in your life so far, because hopefully that won't be the highest ever. But I'm curious, what has been the lowest point in your life, and how has that brought you to where you are today?
Well, that's a good question. About 15 years ago, I ventured out and was involved with basically my own startup, an oil company. A friend of mine had a private property of oil wells in Manitoba. So he did a qualifying transaction and flipped this into a publicly traded company. And at that time, he was raising some money. So I got involved with him to run it. So I had more experience with financial end and board of directors and that type of thing, the governance of a company. Unfortunately, we didn't raise enough capital to conduct some of our basic things. So I put in a substantial amount of my own money with friends and family also, and it failed. It failed miserably, and it was really because it was a lack of capital, and then probably my eyes going in not quite fully open. So it took 2 or 3 years for me to unwind this, get rid of it, and basically there was nothing left after the fact. So that is my lowest point in my career.
And so how has that, gotten into the fabric of your story? What lessons did you learn from that?
Well, I think it's understanding a lot more of the details that before you jump in. So it's like the roadmap, understanding the twists and turns before you engage. There, I didn't do a very good job. I did a good job prior to that, had fun doing it, but when you put your own money on the line and you don't ask those questions, you don't do your due diligence, you get bit.
Thank you.
Rick, I'm just curious. I certainly in the work that I do, I'll often say to people, decision if it was your own money. And sometimes when you reframe that, the response might be different. Like, has that translated to you? Do you think that philosophy gives you a different outlook on how you approach investment or decision making at all, or consultation processes?
Well, that's a good question, because I tend to be riskier with my own money or my own endeavors. I've been always more cautious on the job side, and for whatever reason, I thought probably I was bulletproof. So when I did put my own money, put my own myself on the line, I failed. So I can take that away and saying, well, I have to use the same concept philosophies to myself that I did in my work experiences.
I have another, I guess, theme that you sort of briefly touched on that I'd like to pull out of you a little bit if I can. You're talking about building projects, and you talked very briefly about consultation. So I'm wondering if the word consultation, is that something you've done a lot in? Is it a skill set that you bring to the table, or is it just a nugget that came and went?
Well, the consultation, that was a big part. It was a big piece of the puzzle when there were successes. And when you engage different services, different people with different skill sets, the success was bigger. So consultation is just a matter, it is discussing, getting everybody's opinion and understanding, and what bothers them, what makes their lives easier. So that's that's been used in a lot of the things that I've done in my career.
Okay, moving on. Nancy, do you have any questions that you want to bring forward?
Nothing further at the moment. Just as everybody else goes around, I'm gonna view on it.
Okay, Patricia, how about you?
Yeah, so Rick, do you want to just give us an idea of what your ideal workplace will look like?
Sure. Many years ago, a wiser man than me said that, you know, when you go to a job and want to work with people you want to be associated with. I didn't understand at that time, but now I do. I've been in a few jobs where the atmosphere has been great, people appreciate each other, and I've been in instances where the opposite was true. So my work environment would be someplace where everybody contributes, but they appreciate who they're working with and what they're working for.
And can you expand on that a little bit in terms of kind of what specific industries, or have you looked at certain companies you'd like to work for?
Well, I haven't gotten that far along those lines, but there's obviously some of the construction companies out there. There are, say, municipalities where you represent them on the customer side. There's the agricultural business, but, you know, be quite frankly, some of the greatest ideas come from farmers. Mm-hmm. And they're the opposite, where they have great ideas, but sometimes don't have the skill set to get it done. But, you know, since I've left the farm, there's been so many cool things that farmers have, and it really stems from the basic roots of the farmers themselves. So they're, you know, they have great minds. But there are other industries to pursue. I just haven't had the opportunity at this point to do that.
Duncan, have you got some questions?
Yeah, it's kind of along that same line, but you know, I've got some really good examples here that I enjoyed. Your renovation example, your skate sharpener analogy, I like that. What I'm trying to dig a bit deeper into is, what's that look like in the workplace? And, you know, you've got obviously a strong engineering background, a very well pedigreed resume. But what's the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years look like in terms of who you want to work with, whether that's with another organization or do this on your own, and what value you add to them?
Well, one thing I'd like to do differently, and what I envision as something I would really enjoy, would be not to be stuck in an office environment where, you know, where you have the opportunity to go out and travel. You travel to Northern Alberta, maybe to BC. There's a project to look after. There's a group of people that are wondering how do they get something done. So I really would like to, and I see that as a big benefit for me, to be able to get out of the office and go visit and talk to people and see what they're dealing with. And this is a value that I can bring, because maybe there are obstacles that they don't realize they have. Maybe there's obstacles where they think they have, but they're not there. So it's really a communication thing and understanding what the customer product is. But I'd really like to be able to have the independence and autonomy to move around and deal with projects on that basis.
Just a question, I think, and maybe sort of more of a summary. So we're in a situation where there are a lot of engineers, people with scientific backgrounds that are looking to pivot or to move into something else. So if we line up, you know, 10 people, all with a professional engineer, what makes you so special?
So special.
What's your secret sauce? Why are you, like, why would you shine above everybody else?
I've spent a considerable amount of time, whether it's personal or on the job, in the field where the action is happening.
Yeah.
I've as an engineer, I've been in projects where I grab wrenches and I'm turning them so we can get the job done. So I'm out there helping. I got a lot of respect by doing that. At gas pump turnarounds, I was there till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, going through towers and going through vessels to make sure that they didn't need repairs and so on and so forth. So I was there shoulder to shoulder with them and understand and saw what they were dealing with. So not several engineers, many engineers do that, but there are many that don't. But this is something that I've done and I've acquired through my career, that I've been on the ground floor and gotten my hands dirty.
If I may extend that question, with the last organization you worked in, what did you take away with you? You know, I know people joke and say, well, some people took away stationery. But the point is, when you left that organization, what was the vacuum created? Can you describe that?
Well, the last organization I was working with was the opposite of what I did in the past. They didn't promote innovation, didn't promote autonomy. They were looking for people to put pegs in the holes. So, you know, I had less authority and less responsibility there than I did with my first engineering job 30 years ago. So it really stifled me. I thought I had handcuffs every day, and I really didn't want to go to the job at all. So unfortunately, it was one of the worst experiences of my life. And I'm a seasoned, experienced engineer.
Okay, so can you think of one where it was a better experience and what you think you took away, you know, when you left the organization? What do you think the organization lost by losing you?
Well, I'll go back to CNRL. When I was there and we didn't have very many people, I took a business acumen away. They were forward thinkers. When you think of Murray Edwards, Al Mark, and Keith McPhail, Steve Lott, they let people work. There was always accountability, but they wanted you to go forward. I can go to an example where we went to a presentation and they said, we want you to bring in some hand sketches, because if you're spending so much time doing something on PowerPoint, then you're wasting time. You're not doing some of your other job functions. So they were very practical, and they let you run. And that's what I got out of that.
Thank you.
Okay, so what's holding you back now? What's your next step?
Well, it's what's holding me back is that I probably have to, you know, I would have to do more digging in specific industries, asking more questions, contacting more people, trying to get a better understanding what's out there. Just, you know, making myself smarter with what potential jobs there are out there. So at this point, with the state of the affairs with the coronavirus, I mean, the motivation hasn't been there, but you know, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of research to do. Research for what companies are going to be busy, understanding what, you know, in time where the needs are and requirements are. So, you know, I can't say what's going to happen, but have to be prepared for it and have to be ready for it.
Okay. Is there any other questions around the table this morning?
Well, I'm just curious about what your higher landing experience has been. What's your takeaway from it?
Sorry, I missed that.
What has your experience been going through this program? What's your takeaway?
Well, it's you know, it's being practical. One of the first things in the introductory session that Jackie said was, you know what, if you're not prepared and organized and all you're going to do is fire out resumes, it's like throwing confetti to the wind. you're hoping it's going to stick, but if it's not any good, it's not going to work. So you better do a better job of it. And of course, Jackie, talking with her hands, made a point with me, and it resonated. And it's true. As I found out, you have to dig deep. You have to understand what you want to do, and you have to do a good job of presenting it.
Thank you.
Anybody else this morning?